Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Probably everyone's introduction to public broadcasting was the show Sesame Street. I wasn't the biggest fan as a kid. I mean, I would watch it from time to time. I just wasn't a fanatic of Sesame Street. I was kind of more of a Mr. Rogers kind of kid. But my dad was one that appreciated some of their programming probably more than anyone else in the household. He decided that the family one day was going to help with the call-a-thon and do our part to help out our local PBS station. So we all packed up in the station wagon and headed over to the studios one night and said we were there to help. We were immediately put on the phone bank duty. And as a kid, I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. You know the phone bank, right? Where all the people are in the back of the hosts and the phones are ringing off the hook, trying to get in at their donation of money. Well, then as they went to their first break from whatever documentary was playing, the lights came on and the two hosts got ready with their microphones, and voila, we were on TV. And sure enough, just like on cue, my phone and many other phones around me started to ring. The only problem was when I picked up the phone to answer it, no one was on the other end. And the only thing I could hear was the sound of the studio. What was happening was there were other people in the studio calling our phones. So it looked like we were so busy talking to all these people and taking all these donations as you as a watcher needed to hurry and get your donation in too. It was all a trick or a fake or whatever you want to call it. This actually did not sit well with my father, and we never donated any more time or money to NPR or PBS again. That was a few years ago now, and things have changed quite a bit since then. I don't know if they still do the call-a-thons, and I don't know if it's still a fake or not. But occasionally, I've seen some old video, and you can see people picking up the phone and saying hello, and then kind of looking at the phone like I don't know what's happening and putting it back down. But public broadcasting has changed as well. And Bert and Ernie are supposed to be gay now, and the news and education programming is so far left-wing extreme. No one but Antifa even watches or listens any longer. The Republican Party has finally done what should have been done a long time ago and defunded NPR and PBS. The left is going completely crazy to the point that Chuck Schumer is saying that this is dangerous and people are going to die. In fact, here is an opinion piece by Edward W. Davis of Baptist News Global, who describes himself as, get this, and I don't know what this is, but he describes himself as an emotional intelligence expert. I don't get it. If you know what an emotional intelligence expert is, please let me know. I would love to find out. But he says public broadcasting is not just media. It's a lifeline, especially for millions of Americans who are not wealthy, politically connected, or part of elite circles. Wow, this sounds like he's talking about the 1770s or something. Right now, he says, that lifeline is under threat. National Public Radio and the Public Broadcast Service are being targeted in a new wave of political retaliation led by President Donald Trump. Retaliation, huh? These networks long have been bastions of truthful reporting. Here, stay tuned for that. We're going to get into the truthful reporting here before we're done today. They've been bastions of truthful reporting, educational content, and community-focused programming. They provide critical news, cultural programming, and emergency information, largely free of charge. Free of charge, except it's in your taxes. Anyway, to nearly every corner of the United States, including rural areas, public schools, libraries, and low-income households. Here are, and this is going to be interesting, I think. Here are 10 key reasons why defunding NPR and PBS would deeply hurt all Americans, especially those struggling to be heard. Okay, so let's take a look at his 10 items, can we? Number 1, loss of free educational programming. He says PBS provides early childhood education through shows like Sesame Street and Arthur. Without federal support, these programs may vanish from TV in homes that can't afford streaming services. Okay. If federal cutting off of federal funding, if that means that NPR and PBS can no longer support Sesame Street or Arthur, those those are popular enough, and they will go somewhere else, another broadcasting system. And so to say that they're just going to go away is just not true. All right, number 2. Disruption of local news and community coverage. He says NPR's local affiliates provide crucial regional news that corporate outlets ignore. Yeah, let's take a look at that one coming up here in a minute too. That corporate outlets ignore. Okay. Funding means small towns and cities could lose their only reliable news source. Yeah. Okay. Number 3, elimination of emergency broadcasts. Public stations play virtual roles during natural disasters, power outages, and civil emergencies. Cutting funds risks lives in underserved areas where public radio may be the only alert system. Maybe he hasn't heard of our emergency system through your cell phone, because I'm pretty sure I've gotten at least 4 or 5 alerts in the last couple weeks on my cell phone. Number 4, reduced access to art and culture. PBS introduces millions to theater and music, documentaries, and authors. Content not driven by ratings or profits, but by public interest. For many, it's their only window to the arts. Okay. If this is driven by public interest, then it's going to be picked up by someone. I mean, that's called capitalism. Okay. Number 5, job losses and station closures. Thousands of employees at local stations and support roles could lose their jobs. This hits small cities and rural economies hard, eliminating trusted community institutions. I don't know how trusted PBS is, but we'll have to see. Number 6, educational inequity worsens. Public schools often rely on PBS content. Defunding removes a tool that levels the playing field for students who lack digital or private educational access. Okay. So the schools aren't going at almost $20,000 a student per year are not going to be able to show documentaries or Sesame Street if they get cut from PBS. I don't get that one. Number 7, silencing unbiased. Okay, I can't read this one with a straight face. Anyway, let's do it. Let's try it again. Silencing unbiased, fact-based journalism. Okay, let me get through this. While accusations of bias are hurled independent reviews, including from the FEC, have affirmed NPR's legitimacy. Defunding could leave Americans more vulnerable to propaganda and misinformation. I can't do it. I can't do that one. Oh man. Number 8, targeting vulnerable voices. Both networks give voices to immigrants, indigenous communities, disabled people, and low-income families. Like nobody else does that, right? PBS is the only one. Their stories disappear without public broadcasting. Okay. I would love to see the facts on that one. Number 9, politicizing free speech and press freedoms. Trump's executive order to defund these entities for perceived criticism of its policies is a direct affront to the First Amendment. Today, it's NPR and PBS. Tomorrow, who? This is in no way, okay? Public funded broadcasting is in no way an affront to free speech and the First Amendment, okay? Number 10, diminished civic engagement and trust. Public media educates citizens on how government works, where to vote, and how to participate. Defunding reduces civic knowledge and promotes disengagement. Okay, you can't go on to YouTube and learn any of that. But Doug, you don't understand. Not everybody has the internet. Okay, go to your library because they do, and it's used all the time. So he concludes with this. He says, public media, priceless, not radical. NPR and PBS operate with minimal federal support, around 1% for NPR and 15% for PBS, but their reach and impact are enormous. Okay, so if you had a 1% decrease in your income, this is now going to kill people? This funding supports more than 1,000 stations and reaches 99% of the U.S. population. Public broadcasting is not radical. It's reasonable. It's reliable. It's essential. It belongs to you, not to politicians and not to corporations. Let us be clear. This is not just a media issue. It's a moral issue. A moral issue. I did not see that scripture. It's a moral issue about what kind of country we want to be. A nation where everyone, regardless of zip code or income, can access quality education, independent news, and life-saving alerts. Or one where only the rich and powerful control the narrative. Okay, it's government media. If you live in West Little Rock or West Philadelphia, anywhere in America, this affects you. Tell your representatives, hands off public broadcasting. Anyway, he says, because silencing NPR and PBS isn't just censorship, it's erasure. Okay. Wow. That is quite an indictment. Okay. So he's made his case here. All right. And the HungarianConservative.com says to this, with Vice President J.D. Vance's tie-breaking vote to the U.S. Senate, advanced a bill aiming to strip the American broadcast stations PBS and NPR of $1.1 billion with a B dollars in federal funding. Doing away with government funding to public broadcasters has been a conservative rallying cry in the U.S. for years. One, because of the liberal bias of their programming, and two, for the sake of reducing wasteful government spending. The latter efforts were amplified by Elon Musk's Doge at the start of the President Trump's second term. The bill canceling $1.1 billion in federal funds to the Corporation of Public Broadcasting and an additional $8.3 billion in foreign aid has not passed yet. Well, actually it did. Just so you know, it actually did pass, and it has only been moved. It said it only has been moved forward. Of course, it actually has passed and presented to Donald Trump. It says the move, however, has received backlash from Democrats. Former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich, you remember him, right? Robert Reich has posted a strange, overproduced video on X on the matter. In it, he draws comparisons with the current Trump administration and the authoritarian regimes of the 20th century in the most predictable of possibilities. However, in this case, it is falling flatter than usual, as these regimes, such as the Soviet Union under Stalin and Nazi Germany under Hitler, were investing heavily in public media, turning it into their state-run propaganda machine. In fact, depriving public media of government funds is the least authoritarian thing a leader can do. I mean, if you're an authoritarian, as they call Trump all the time, you probably wouldn't be defunding public-run media. He says there are a number of other false past Reich committed in his cute little video. He started with a segment talking to Elmo, of course, the best-known character on the PBS's children's show, Sesame Street. However, just a day before, the official X account for Elmo was hacked and started to post violently anti-Semitic posts. Most of the comments reminded Mr. Reich, who is a professor at Berkeley University, by the way, of that. Also, at the very beginning, he shows a brief snippet of a Sesame Street episode in which President Trump is mocked as a puppet in a trash can. The fact that the creators of a publicly funded children's show thought it appropriate to engage in political satire does little to help their case against accusations of political bias from the right. One, of course, the major arguments used to justify defunding the operation. Well, Reich's video on X has a community note attached as well, and he claims that Sesame Street is getting canceled if PBS gets its government funding cut. In reality, as the community note points out, the streaming giant Netflix has purchased the broadcast rights to the show and will be including it in its catalog. If need be, the company would certainly be able to finance the protection of the puppet show as well. So the umpteenth piece, accusing Trump of fascism, this one happens to be one of the more entertaining ones by Professor Reich, but also one of the more absurd, of course. And speaking of absurd, have you heard what the CEO of NPR is saying? Yeah, Lindsay Cornick of Fox News reports this. She says NPR CEO Catherine Maher challenged critics to show her a story that would prove the radio network is biased on Wednesday. This past. Maher defended her organization on CNN's The Situation Room as it faces efforts by President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans to remove its federal funding. Though Trump and other conservative critics have accused NPR of being politically biased towards Democrats, Maher insisted that they, quote, serve all Americans, unquote, and seemed to deny any bias. She said, it doesn't help anyone to take this funding away, Maher said. As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom, unquote. She actually added, we believe that as a public broadcaster, we do have an obligation to serve all Americans. And we need to make sure that our coverage reflects the interests and perspectives. And we hear from Americans across the political spectrum. That's important to us. And we want to make sure we live up to that. Okay, that's just a bunch of political speak. But anyway, Maher's comments received backlash, of course, from right-leaning social media users who were quick to provide examples, of course. This was an easy one, right? This was teed up. Quote, we're here to serve all Americans is a humorous lie. NPR is here to serve Democrats and Antifa and people who think the Communist Manifesto is a stirring book. That was Newsbusters executive editor Tim Graham. Here's one from Libs of TikTok gal. Here you go. These are just a few, and she actually provided a photo of several of NPR's headlines. Here, let me go over a couple of these. In one, the article says some white people may choose the thumbs up emoji because it feels natural, but some academics argue opting out of the thumbs up emoji signals a lack of awareness about white privilege, akin to society associating whiteness with being raceless. That's from NPR. Okay, here's a couple more. The headline of this article: "Fat Phobia and its Racist Past and Present." That one might be interesting, right? Here's another: "How Racism Became a Marketing Tool for Country Music." Well, that might be true. I don't know. I'm not a big country music fan. But anyway, here's another one. "The right-wing conspiracy theory about eating bugs is about as racist as you think." That's the headline. Yeah, it basically is talking about the fact that we should be eating bugs. Here's another one. They reported, "Why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the Biden laptop story?" This is a question that was asked of them. And they responded with, "We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions." Pure distractions. Here's another one. Let me give you a couple more. "Kamala Harris already faces racism and sexism from Trump and Republicans." And let's go one more. Okay, one more headline. There is no neutral nice white people can still be complicit in a racist society. That's the head in. That's the lead. That's the title to the story. Well, Senator John Kennedy, of course, he's pretty funny at times. He posted a thread featuring videos of himself on the Senate floor, providing examples of NPR's political bias. Quote: "NPR reported that country music and birds are racist, told American people to stop eating beef, and promoted the Russiagate conspiracy. No person with a brain above a single-celled organism would call these articles fair and balanced." I do like him. Another read, "NPR claimed President Biden's presidential debate performance didn't change the election," days before he dropped out of the race. If you believe that headline, you believe that in the Tooth Fairy. But that's what NPR reported with your tax dollars. Here's another. NPR reported that there is no evidence that biological men have an unfair advantage over biological women in sports. NPR also called America's interstate highways racist. Yeah, the highways, racist. I did not know a highway could be racist. I thought they were concrete, but not according to NPR. That's part of their educational side of things, I think. He concluded with this. He said, "NPR referred to rural Americans as Christian nationalists and heaped praise on Biden administration official Rachel Levine." He said, I could go on all day. American taxpayers shouldn't have to fund this opinion journalism. Newsbusters managing editor Curtis Houck, he told Fox News that about her comments that they were just simply despicable and just ridiculous and a pants on fire lie, pointing to several examples of NPR's political bias, including their failure to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, of course. But he said Maurer can lock herself in an ideological bubble all she wants, but what she's not entitled to are the facts and poisoning the body politic with actual disinformation, is what Houck said. Maurer had admitted that ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop story was a mistake, but one that had happened before she was appointed CEO in 2024. And shortly after she was named NPR CEO, however, NPR senior business editor Yuri Berline wrote a scathing rebuke of his publication and revealed that in the newsroom there were 87 registered Democrats in the NPR editorial positions. Can you guess how many Republicans there are there? Registered Republicans? 0. 87 Democrats, no Republicans. Maurer also came under fire after her old social media posts emerged featuring her openly supporting former President Joe Biden and attacking Trump leading up to the 2020 election. She also repeated several left-leaning talking points, such as saying that property damage was not the thing Americans should be upset over during the George Floyd riots. So now that the decision has been made, though, and the bill has passed and signed, what are we going to be deprived of in the future, do you think? Well, let's look at that. Catherine Maxwell of the Daily Wire wrote this. She said, the Senate voted in the early hours of Thursday morning to end federal funding for NPR programs deemed wasteful and ideologically driven. Liberals say the move will reduce safety warnings for rural America, while conservatives point out that NPR has a history of pushing leftist narratives. To celebrate ending its federal funding, here are some of the worst NPR articles from over the years. This ought to be good, right? Hunter Biden's laptop is pure distraction. Yeah, we kind of got into this a little bit here just a few moments ago. When the New York Post broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptop in 2020, media outlets pushed for they pushed to suppress the story, and NPR decided not to cover it at all, saying we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste listeners and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. In an analysis of the story, NPR said that the Post scoop was, quote, marked by more red flags than investigative rigor, unquote. In 2022, NPR quietly admitted that the Hunter Biden story might have been worth paying attention to after all. But that's just one. Consider the gay asylum seekers one. Yeah. One story NPR did find worth covering was a 2021 piece titled Trump Years Were Terrifying for Gay Asylum Seekers. The piece explains the life of a gay man afraid of being deported during President Trump's first term. Gay immigrants seem to be one of NPR's favorite topics. You can read about gay Muslims living in Russia, gay refugees fleeing Ukraine, gay refugees from Uganda, or a Mexican shelter for gay immigrants coming to the United States. And that's not even half of NPR's gay immigration coverage. The Trump administration is deporting illegal immigrants because they broke the law, not because of anyone's sexual orientation. Despite being obsessed with the subject, NPR has yet to find one immigrant who was deported for being gay. Here's another one. Everything is racist. In 2020, NPR ran an interview entitled Fat Phobia and Its Racist Past and Present. The interview went all the way back to the transatlantic slave trade to understand the racial origins of fat phobia. The interviewee claimed diet culture came from Europeans deciding to be slender to make them the premier race of the world, and added, there are so many problems with telling people to lose weight. Tell that to my doctor, please. For more NPR gems about racism, consider stories such as experiencing racism may physically change your brain, which was an article about how nice white people are still racist. Or a long article detailing next steps if you flunked a racism test. How about transgender truckers? Have you ever driven past a semi on the interstate and wondered if the trucker was transgender? He or she or they might be. NPR exclaimed in an interview about diverse trucking. The interviewer talked to the founder of a company that screens trucking companies to find out if they support LGBTQ drivers or if their health insurance coverage covers things like trans health care. Quote, it's trying to bridge the gap between the regular LGBTQ community and the trucking community, letting them realize that there is drivers out there, that it's a good option for a driver, and paying for surgeries and whatever, your personal goal is, the company's founder said. Well, NPR also talked to a trans-identifying man to learn about the world of women truckers and what they tell us about driving and working alone. Brandy Diamond described herself as a transgender driver, and they did a whole windshield time in exploring her identity as a transgender woman. Alone time is a great way to plot how to change your gender, is what NPR seemed to suggest. Well, how about the one we were talking about here just a little earlier? What's bugging you? In 2013, NPR ran a story with the headline, "Maybe it's time to swap burgers for bugs," says UN. In 2017, NPR said, "All bug eating festival. Kids crunch down on the food of the future." And in 2018, the outlet mused, "Your ancestors probably ate insects, so what's bugging you?" In 2023, NPR wondered why so many conservatives were refusing to eat bugs. This right-wing conspiracy theory, this is a quote, "This right-wing conspiracy theory about eating bugs is about as racist as you think." That's what they wrote. Seriously. One ex-user summed up the saga perfectly. NPR blasted Americans who believed the baseless conspiracy theory that the coronavirus was created in a lab in China, saying there is zero evidence of this. A new poll finds 40% of respondents believe in a baseless conspiracy theory that the coronavirus was created in a lab in China. There is zero evidence for this. Scientists say the virus was transmitted to humans from another. Yeah. Well, that one didn't age well. Transgender dinosaurs. This is one of my favorite. And if you haven't heard this, you're going to have to go on to YouTube and you're going to have to listen to this. NPR once spent 10 minutes describing the battle between pro and anti-trans activists over dinosaur emojis. Yeah. To help explain the controversy, the outlet spoke to trans-identifying science writer who uses the she, they, it pronoun. LGBT activists love dinosaurs and use terms like Allosaurus and Triceratops. But then anti-trans activists started using dinosaur emojis. Oh no, not people that don't believe in being trans. Oh no, they're stealing it. Quote, "Dinosaurs are ours," the science writer said, even though he admitted he doesn't know why the LGBT subreddit loves dinosaurs so much. But, quote, "This is a dark day," said this is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, said in his response to the NPR cuts. He says, "This is a dark day." Well, maybe it is for the transgender dinosaurs. The rest of us will be just fine, I think. I don't think that we will miss government-funded media much, but we will save a pretty significant amount of money. And I would love to hear from you on this. I mean, maybe you have a different idea on it. I would love to hear from you, and you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. You can always go onto YouTube and like us, share us. It always helps. Thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.